Memorizing a text, like a poem or a chapter of scripture, is different from memorizing a list of objects or names. The three principles for memorizing texts are repetition, chunking, and transitions. In this video, I will introduce each of these principles briefly. The first principle is repetition. As with any memory technique, you memorize by repeating. Frequency is important, so practice often, and regularity over time is important, so you must commit to practicing daily for weeks or months. Students of languages already know this. Practice repetitions using as many of your senses as possible. Read the words, but also say them aloud. This allows you to hear the words in your own voice and also feel them in your mouth and in your throat. The experience of hearing and saying them will help you to remember. You should also write out the text you plan to memorize, daily if possible. This engages still more of your tactile senses. Using all of these sense experiences together will give you faster memorization and more reliable recall than using any one of them alone. One last thing about repetition. Get a recording of someone reciting the text you are memorizing. Listen to it regularly, repeating along as much as you can. You can repeat over the speaker or pause the recording and speak after him, line by line. This method helped me memorize Lepanto about 12 years ago. I played a recording of it in my car on my way to and from work each day, then recited along as I learned it. The second principle is chunking. This means breaking the text down into manageable pieces, then memorizing each piece separately. Manageable means manageable for you, so feel free to make the chunks as small as you need to. The first stanza of Chesterton's poem Lepanto is 14 lines long, and I chunk it into 3 groups of 6, 4, and 4 lines. More about that in another video. Chunking lets you memorize a longer text in pieces. This leads to the third principle, transitions. Once you have memorized 2 chunks, you will need to remember a transition between them. Ideally, this is a mnemonic that will trigger at the final line of the first chunk and will bring to mind the beginning of the second chunk. The end of my first 6-line chunk of Lepanto is shaken with his ships. The next 4-line chunk begins, they have dared, which continues the story by telling what the ships were doing. When I get to the end of line 6, I remember, what were those ships doing? And the beginning of line 7 comes to my mind automatically. Transitions can be based on the sound, rhythm, or meaning of the text involved. In some cases, you may just have to add a transition as one more item to memorize. So, those are my 3 principles for memorizing texts: repetition, chunking, and transitions. In another video, I will apply these principles to memorizing Chesterton's Lepanto. Thanks for watching today. Goodbye.